Let's do this. Hello, faces. I know it's been a while, and yeah, I have a lot of explaining to do, especially with that title in the video. So bear with me on this. So it just feels like these past two videos, they just seemed off. I mean, looking back into the two, they were more scripted than a YouTuber apology video.
I mean, you're not wrong, but you didn't have to say it. I mean, good Lord.
So I'm going to try and change the format of these videos to have it more based on commentary, even though really I'm commentating on my own stuff, but hopefully I don't make these videos boring and have you all leaving here learning something, but to also help find this channel's identity. But those two videos are already posted, so let's just move forward. So a quick summary of the last two videos is that about 5 years ago I started making a fighting game framework in Unreal Engine 4, but in recent years I upgraded to Unreal Engine 5, and I've been creating these features from the ground up. Last video I focused more on the cutscene system and how I divide it into two different modes, those two being conversation and cutscene modes. Now, the last two videos focus more on the cutscene mode, but in this one I'm going to try and focus more on the conversation mode and try to talk about the few bugs that I fixed along the way. Now, I would put some links or some end cards anywhere on the video, but I completely forgot that new channels cannot do that, and so I'll just leave the links to the last devlog in the video description below. And since the year's almost over, I have a few things that I need to announce and also talk about the plans going forward. So, with all that being said, here's what's been going on these past few weeks. And before we go any further, I would like to thank this video sponsor, My Questionable Will to Live.
Oh, brother.
Okay, that sounded better in my head. Let me explain. When I meant I have a questionable will to live, I actually mean I am just constantly living in curiosity and how I've always been thinking about what can I do in my life that I haven't done today that I can do tomorrow. So instead of doing this one hobby constantly, what if I can go back to doing an old hobby that I've done, or can I pick up on a new one? That's what I really meant, so I guess I could have rephrased that better. Now, after hearing that, so you can take me off of some kind of watch list, I'm perfectly fine, I'm mentally stable. This is really more of a topic focusing more on personal growth. And speaking of growth, this channel has not been growing so well. So I just found out 100% of you guys aren't subscribed to the channel. And after saying all that, what are you guys doing? Compared to these analytics, the survival rate of a child surviving in a sweatshop is even higher than this. So, can you guys do me a favor and subscribe to the channel? Oh, and also follow the Twitter account. Over there, I'm going to be posting more updates on projects that I'm working on and also just goof around sometimes. So yeah, in reality, I don't really have a real sponsor and I'm hoping in the future I can get one. And with all that being said, now first off, what even is conversation mode? Compared to the more complex cutscene mode, conversation mode will be used primarily for things like intros or mid-round scenes. If you guys remember back in the old days, oh god, I sound like an old person. When you're playing a fighting game, and right before you fight your rival, or really an enemy, the game would have a brief dialogue scene of the two players interacting with each other. Now this would be a good example of conversation mode. Now with gimmicks like this, these scenes don't really happen anymore in fighting games. Well, I guess not anymore. Well, but it doesn't really happen though. I mean, modern fighting games do it, but they haven't done it in a while, and the most recent one I can think of from the top of my head is Tekken 8. Now, some people might think Street Fighter, but Street Fighter 5 did have custom outros, but it didn't have custom intros, unless it's really battle mode, or it's a special mode you're trying to get for fight money. And Tekken, I know for sure they do have custom intros and outros, and as for Street Fighter 6, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't played 6, and to be honest, I don't have plans to. I'm honestly just not a fan of it. And one feature that I thought they would have in the game would be custom intros and outros, but unfortunately, they don't have special intros like they used to have. You guys remember in the game Street Fighter Alpha, they would have these custom intros, or hell, even Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. They would have these special intros to actually help build the world of Street Fighter. Honestly, I don't know why Capcom stopped doing that, and I actually kind of like those. They added more character to the game, and they also added a little bit more replayability, just to see how certain characters react with others. Now, conversation mode would do just that, and have special scenes playing if certain characters are matched up against each other. So if you haven't watched the last video, this will take place the moment when Dimitri starts to retreat to gain more power, and right before Morgan and BB Hood starts to duel it out. I thought it'd be a good idea to just have it like that, considering I left that scene open-ended. And at first I was thinking about making that a separate cutscene, but I said screw it. And I figured I might as well use it to create the intro for this mode using the conversation mode. Now, there are a few key differences with this mode and cutscene mode. With conversation mode, the background images that you would see behind the characters wouldn't be rendered. And in addition to that, the third and fourth image channels are also disabled. And if you guys don't know what that is, I explain more on what those are in detail in the last devlog. And finally, the biggest difference between the two is that with conversation mode, the dialogue event scene library is also disabled, so you wouldn't be able to make custom UIs or certain images show up. And after that, I can finally say that I'm finally done with Phite Engine Framework's dialogue system. Now, last video I showed off some scene transitions that I added into the dialogue system, but I left a few things out. There's a blog post by Parallel Cube that goes over how to make your own scene transitions. Keep in mind that it's not specifically aimed for screen transitions for visual novels, it's really more for background transitions. But you can still use this tutorial for things like that or even level transitions. After reading the first part of the blog post, it was really helpful, especially if it's your first time making screen transitions, and it also demonstrates the final results in Engine. The blog post is divided into two parts, with each being separated based on the complexity of how the transition works. So part 1 mainly focuses on basic transitions like fade to black and pixelated transitions, to name a few. Part 2 is aimed for more advanced transitions like wave distortions and diagonal strips. If you're a fan of Pokemon, part 2 takes heavy inspiration from those scene transitions. So if you're making some kind of fan game or fan project that's heavily inspired by Pokemon, I recommend this part if you're interested in screen transitions. If you're interested in giving it a read, the link will be in the description down below. So moving on from references, I decided to look back at some old footage with the scene transitions, and I wasn't a big fan of the page flip transition. But the reason why I wanted to revamp this transition was because looking back at the previous devlog, the material was just way too pixelated, and it looked more like a wipe than a page turn. And so I took some time to revamp that system, and I wanted to revamp the page flip transition a few days after I made the last video. Now, I wasn't sure on how I wanted to approach this situation, and how I can even make a page flip completely from scratch. Now, the first thing I did was make an MPF file of an animation in Movie Studio 17, and created an animation that converted a solid white color to a solid black color, using that software's page flip transition. After I was done with that, I then went online and converted it into individual sprites. Once that was done, I resized the footage of the page flipping animation into a spreadsheet and formatted it to have one row with multiple columns. Now once that's done, I finally applied that spreadsheet into the animation and converted that into the new UV gradient transition. Now once that was done, I used an animation node in the material blueprint. I mapped out the number of frames with the time input, and once that was done, I tweaked a little bit of the values and ended up with this as the final result. Now after I was done with that, I created a new blueprint system that would house all of the special moves or special events that a character specifically has. Now, this blueprint that I end up calling the gameplay ability system, I made it to where if a player executes a command input and it calls in events that uses the same special moves by name, it would also set the fighter pawn state. And after that particular event is done, whatever the special command is, that gameplay ability system would then delete itself from the level. And as for what kind of special move that the pawn's gonna have, I know the special move is going to be named Fireball, but it's not gonna shoot out a fireball. Look, I know it sounds stupid, okay? But you know what else is stupid? Your mother. Anyway, all the special move is going to do is launch the character up in the air and play a particular BB Hood voice clip. Now, it's not going to involve any special movements. All I want to do is just make the character jump up more than these E-thoughts jumping up and down and managing to destroy Twitch's TOS for a day.
Stinks!
Now with the remaining special moves, all I did was just have it play the other voice lines that BB Hood has. This whole entire time, I had the input buffer just print out the list of the special move and not actually perform it. But all that's going to change. So after adding in some new features and fixing a few problems with the input buffer system and a few of the wall collisions acting up, this is everything notable that I've changed in the engine framework, and hopefully there aren't any bugs that's going to occur. So yeah, that practically sums up what I've been doing this whole time, but there were some things I was pretty concerned about. The fact that I've been working on this for a good 5 years and I had to restart a few times, it just got me thinking, what am I going to do for 2024? It's Christmas time and 2023 is practically over at this point. So I've been doing a little bit of some thinking these past few months, and I'm going to come to the conclusion that I'm just going to stop making devlogs on this engine framework. I mean, yeah, I'm going to work on it in the background, and hell, let's face it, your dad coming home with the milk is a more likely chance of me releasing a fighting game anytime soon.
Meanwhile, I got the milk. Yeah!
What the? Especially since I'm a solo dev, and I was kind of having this conflicted thought of, do I work on this really ambitious project for, hell, 5 more years, or just work on something else? And I decided to come with the conclusion to work on another project I've thought about. Now, which one? I'm not so sure, because while I was working on Phite Engine Framework for a bit, I've had over 20 projects at this moment, and I'm not really sure where to start or, hell, what the plan is. I mean, I had a few ideas going around, but I haven't really expanded on those ideas yet. But, I mean, there is one project that I had in mind. I mean, the game genre is mainly towards a more niche audience. Well, niche-er compared to fighting games. And I think maybe working on this project would help me with Phite Engine Framework in the long haul. But hopefully with this new project in mind, I'm actually able to not only make a demo, but also release it within the next 5 years. I'm trying to make a good schedule and a more detailed roadmap. I'm trying to see how I can manage my time, considering that not only am I a full-time engineering college student, but it's also my last semester. So I'm trying to prioritize on be a full-time engineering student, work on this project, all while not being so busy all the time and not so easily exhausted. And going back to what I said about the channel's identity, I'm going to try and upload more than I did this year, but I don't really know what I can talk about other than game dev. But I don't know, I'll figure something out. And in conclusion, I still don't know how to sign these videos off. This is Mr. Whatever this channel's name is, wishing you hugs and presents. Happy holidays if you guys celebrate it, and hope to see more of you in 2024. Peace.